yesterday. Maybe I'm behind the times, or perhaps it's a false rumor, you know? One of those pieces of spiteful gossip. Now, I learned yesterday of the most sensational official practice of American public schools, which no doubt accounts for the fact that this country considers itself to be in the vanguard of progress. It seems that among the examinations or tests required of a child entering public school for the first time is the so-called seminal fluid or sperm test. This consists of collecting a small amount of sperm to be placed in a jar and kept ready for any attempted artificial insemination that may later take place. You see, Americans are finding more and more that they lack muscle. And children. Well, not for workers, for soldiers. Yeah, they want at all costs and by every possible means to make and manufacture soldiers, with a view to all the planetary wars that might later take place, and which would demonstrate by the overwhelming virtue of force the superiority of American products and the fruits of American sweat in all fields of activity, and the superiority of the possible dynamism of force. Because one must produce, and one must by all possible means replace nature wherever it can be replaced, and the worker must have something to keep him busy, and so new fields of activity must be created, until at last we see the reign of all fake manufactured products, of all the vile synthetic substitutes to which beautiful real nature have no part. Until finally and shamefully, we give way to all these fake manufactured products in which the sperm, the artificial insemination factories, create a miracle in order to produce armies and battleships. No more fruit, no more trees, no more vegetables, no more plants, pharmaceutical or otherwise. Consequently, no more food, only synthetic products everywhere, along with the fumes, along with the destruction of the atmosphere, and in particular, an atmosphere of life wrenched violently and synthetically from the nature of mankind. There's nothing of war except the fear of it. Oh, and war is wonderful, isn't it? For it's war, isn't it, that the Americans have been and are preparing for in this very way, step by step, in order to defend all the senseless manufacture from the competition that cannot fail to arise. One must have soldiers, armies, airplanes, battleships. Hence the sperm, which apparently the government of America has had the effrontery to think of. For we, the born capitalists, we have more than one enemy lying in wait for us. And among these enemies is Russia, who's also not lacking in armed men.
All this is very well, but I did not know the Americans were such a warlike people. In order to fight, one must get shot at, and although I have seen Americans at war, they always have huge armies of tanks, airplanes, battleships to serve as their shield.
That's right! I've seen machines fighting a lot, but I've only seen the men who directed them infinitely far behind. prefer the people who eat delirium off the bare earth from which they were born.
What?
I mean the Terra Humara.
Right.
They eat peyote off the ground while they're being born. They kill the sun to establish the kingdom of Black Night. They smash the cross so that the spaces of spaces can never again meet and cross.
And so you are going to hear the dance of Tutu Curry.
And below gapes the circle of the 6 crosses, as if embedded very low in the Mother Earth, cruelly despairing at the heart and wrenched from the foul embrace of the mother who drools.
The black hole of the earth is the only damp place in this chiseled rock.
The right is that the sun passes through 7 points before blazing on the orifice of the earth.
And there are 6 men, 1 for each sun. And a 7th man who is the sun in the raw, dressed in black and in red flesh.
But the 7th man is a horse with a man leading him.
But it is the horse who is the sun and not the man.
At the anguish of a drum and a long, strange trumpet, the 6 men who were lied down, rolling on the ground, leap up one by one like sunflowers, not like suns, but like turning earths or water lilies. Each leap corresponds bonds to the increasingly somber and restrained gong of the drum, until suddenly he comes galloping at vertiginous speed, the last son,
The first man.
the black horse with a naked man
Absolutely naked and virgin.
riding it. As they leap up, they advance in winding circles, and the horse of bleeding meat rears and prances without a stop, until the 6 men have surrounded completely the 6 crosses. Now, the essence of the rite is precisely the abolition of the cross, the abolition of the cross, the abolition of the cross. When they stop turning, they uproot the crosses of earth, and the naked man on the horse holds up an enormous horseshoe dipped in a gash of his blood.
Where it smells of shit. It smells of being. Man could just as well not have shat. Not have opened the anal pouch. But he chose to shit. Just as he chose to live instead of consenting to live dead. Because in order not to make shit, he would have to consent not to be. But he couldn't make up his mind to lose his being, to die alive. There is in being something something particularly tempting for man, and that something is none other than shit.
To exist, one need only let oneself be. But to live, one must be someone. And to be someone, one must have a bone and not be afraid to show the bone and to lose the meat in the process.
Man has always preferred meat to the earth of bones, because there was only wood and earth of bones, and he had to earn his meat. There was only iron and fire and no shit. And man was afraid of losing shit, or rather, he desired shit, and for this sacrificed blood.
In order to have shit or meat, where there was only blood and a junkyard of bones, there was no being to win, but only life to lose.
At this point, man withdrew and fled. Then, the animals ate him. It was not a rape. He lent himself to the obscene meal. He relished it. He learned himself to act like an animal and to eat rat daintily.
And where does this foul debasement come from?
The fact that the world is not yet formed. Or that man only has a small idea of the world and wants to hold on to it forever.
This comes from the fact that one fine day man stopped the idea of the world.
Yes! Two paths were open to him. One of the infinite without. One of the infinitesimal within. And he chose the infinitesimal within.
Where one need only squeeze
The spleen.
The tongue.
The anus.
or the glands.
And God himself squeezed the movement.
Is God a being? If he is one, he is shit. If he is not one, he does not exist. But he does not exist, except as the void that approaches with all its forms, whose most perfect image is the advance of an incalculable group of crab lice.
You are mad, Mr. Artaud. What about the Holy Mass?
I deny the baptism and the Mass. There is no human act on the internal erotic level more pernicious than the descent of the so-called Jesus Christ onto the altars. No one will believe me, and I can see the public shrugging its shoulders, but the so-called Christ is none other than he who in the presence of the crab-louse God consented to live without a body, while an army of men descended from a cross to which God thought he had long since nailed them, has revolted, and armed with steel, with blood, with fire, and with bones, advances, reviling the invisible to have done with God's judgment.
The question arises.
What makes it serious is that after this world, there is another.
What is it like?
We do not know.
The number of possible suppositions in this realm is precisely infinity.
And what is infinity?
That is precisely what we do not know.
It is the word that we use to indicate the opening of our consciousness toward possibility. It is beyond measure, tireless and beyond measure.
And precisely what is consciousness?
That is precisely what we do not know.
It is nothingness.
And nothingness we use to indicate when we do not know something.
From what side we do not know it, so we say consciousness from the side of consciousness. But there are 100,000 other sides to this equation.
Right! Well, it seems our consciousness is linked to sexual desire and to hunger.
But it could just as well not be linked to sexual desire and to hunger.
One says
One can
There
say
are those who say
that consciousness is an appetite, the appetite for living.
And immediately alongside the appetite for living, the appetite for food comes immediately to mind.
As if there were not people who eat without any sort of appetite, and who are hungry.
for this to exist.
to be hungry without appetite.
Well, the space of possibility came to me one day, like a loud fart. But neither of space nor of possibility did I know what it was. But I did not feel the need to think about it.
So, words invented to define things that existed.
Or did not exist.
In the face of the pressing urgency, the need to abolish the idea.
The idea and its myth.
To enthrone in its place the thundering manifestation of this explosive necessity.
Today, the body of my internal night.
The internal nothingness of myself.
Which is night.
Which is nothingness.
Which is thoughtlessness.
Which is the explosive affirmation that there is something to make room for.
My body. And truly, must it be reduced to the stinking gas, my body? Or to say that I have a body because I have the stinking gas that forms inside of me?
I don't know, but
I do know! That's space.
time,
Dimension.
Becoming.
future,
Destiny.
Being.
Non-being.
self,
Non-self.
Are nothing to me! Oh, but there is one thing.
Which is something, only one thing.
Which is something which I feel because it wants to get out of this presence my body's suffering, this menacing, ever-time presence of my body.
however hard they press me with questions, and however vigorously I deny all questions, there is a point where I find myself compelled to say no.
No! So then to negation.
And this point comes when they press me.
When they pressure me. When they handle me. Until the exit from me of my nourishment. Until from me of my nourishment and its milk. Oh, and what remains?
That I am suffocated. And I do not know if it is an action, but in pressing me with questions this way, until the absence and nothingness of the question, they pressed me until the idea of body and the idea of being a body was suffocated in me.
It was then that I felt the obscene, and I parted from folly and
Revolted my suffocation!
Because they were pressing me to my body, to my very body, and it was then that I exploded everything, because my body can never be touched.
And what was the purpose of this broadcast, Mr. Artaud?
Primarily, to denounce certain social obscenities officially sanctioned and acknowledged. 1. This emission of infantile sperm donated by children for the artificial insemination of fetuses yet to be born and which will be born in a century or more. And 2, to denounce this same American people who would occupy the whole surface of the former Indian continent. A rebirth of that warlike imperialism of early America that caused the pre-Columbian Indian tribes to be degraded by the aforesaid people.
You are saying some very bizarre things, Mr. Artaud.
Yes, I am saying something bizarre. That contrary to everything we have been led to believe, the pre-Columbian Indians were a strangely civilized people, and that they knew a form of civilization based exclusively on the principle of cruelty. And do you know what precisely is meant by cruelty?
Offhand, no, I don't.
Cruelty means eradicating by means of blood, and until blood flows, God, the bestial accident of unconscious human animality, wherever one can find it. Man, when he is not restrained, is an erotic animal. He has in him an inspired shudder, a kind of pulsation that produces animals without number, which are the form that the ancient tribes of earth universally attributed to God. This created what is called a spirit. Well, the spirit, originating with the American Indians, is reappearing all over the world today under scientific poses which merely accentuate its morbid infectious power. The marked condition of vice, but a vice that pullulates with diseases, because, laugh if you like, what has been called microbes is God. And do you know what the Americans and the Russians use to make their atoms? They make them with the microbes of God.
You are raving, Mr. Artaud. You are mad.
I am not raving. I am not mad. I tell you, they have reinvented microbes in order to impose a new idea of God. They have found a new way to bring out God and to capture him in his microbic noxiousness. This is to nail him through the heart, in the place where men love him most, under the guise of unhealthy sexuality, in that sinister appearance of morbid cruelty that he adopts whenever he is pleased to tetanize the mad humanity as he is doing now. He utilizes the spirit of purity and a consciousness that has remained candid like mine, to asphyxiate it with all the false appearances that he spreads universally through space. And this is why Artaud le moment can be taken for a person suffering from hallucinations.
What do you mean, Mr. Artaud?
I mean that I have found the way to put an end to this charade once and for all. And although nobody believes in God anymore, everybody believes more and more in man. So it is man who we must now make up our minds to emasculate.
How do you mean?
How do you mean?
However one takes you, Mr. Artaud, you are mad. You are ready for the straitjacket.
To place him on the autopsy table, to remake his anatomy. I say, remake his anatomy. Man is sick because he is badly constructed. We must make up our minds to strip him bare and scrape off and rid him of all of that animalcule that itches him mortally. I mean God. And along with God, scrape off and rid him of his organs. When you have made him a body without his organs, then you will have delivered him from all of this automatic reactions and restored him to his true freedom. And then he will know again how to dance wrong side out, as in the frenzy of the dance halls. And this wrong side out will be his real place.